Something that we talked about going into the bye week. There was an opportunity for the Giants to make a change going into the bye and change coordinators with Jason Garrett, and they didn't do it. They were a step behind, and now they are going to pay the price for it, Moose, because they're in a position where you got nothing to lose. You're 3-7. You have nothing to lose at this point. But they should have had this type of urgency heading into the bye week. They didn't because they had convinced themselves they had turned a corner. It was the defense that had turned the corner, not really the offense. Scoring touchdowns for this team is this massive Herculean effort, not just last night, but throughout the season. They are dead last in red zone scoring, and that's been on repeat this entire season. The defense was behind to start the season. They didn't have the urgency to even begin this year. It cost them games. There's so much wrong with the offense now, though, and we've been preaching and talking about it, and you cannot blame the injuries anymore. Everyone was out there last night, and they scored 10 points. Now they're playing with nothing to lose. Congrats. You got nothing to lose. Should have made the change going into the bye week. Inexcusable.
Yeah, they should have, but they didn't. Now there's no excuses anymore. And I think Judge obviously last night, called it out. So, he wanted to give Garrett a little bit more time, and Gay called out Jason Garrett and said, we've got to be better. And we've been talking about it for a while here. And you've got a guy that could step in Freddie Kitchens on the coaching staff. It's tough and impossible to watch a Giant game right now. The only time they scored a touchdown last night was after the ball bounced off Mike Evans' shoulder pads into the arms of Adoree Jackson, and the Giants were set up at the 4 or the 5 yard line. Ended up being the touchdown pass to Andrew Thomas. Really creative play by Jason Garrett.
He had a couple good plays last night.
So you look at it last night, it's got to be better, and we've been saying it for quite some time. And you've been given a year and a half now, and you look at Garrett, now it's a question of Jones looked terrible last night. And now you're trying to figure out exactly what you have in Daniel Jones. So if Jason Garrett's not getting the best out of the quarterback, and I know the offensive line's not particularly good, and Thomas didn't look 100% healthy last night, but it was good to see him back on that left tackle position. The Will Hernandez was an absolute disaster. So you have to figure out exactly what you have in Jones. So you've got a two-pronged problem here for the Giants. Not only are you dead last in the division, no signs of growth offensively, maybe a transition from the offensive coordinator, and in doing so, do you then get the best out of Daniel Jones, who I think and I've been a supporter of Daniel Jones, last night was an awful night for the quarterback. Missed a lot of guys, looked skittish, as Boomer talked about on the morning show this morning, in the pocket. Looked like he couldn't wait to get rid of the football. The decision-making on the field last night by Daniel Jones left a lot to be desired. So all those that say Jones is not the guy, well, you present Exhibit A, which was the game last night.
Yeah, and there's a few more exhibits that you could do because, yes, Jones has these skills that you would think would add up to be a great quarterback, but the decision-making has still not come around. Who's gotten better on this offense? Who's gotten better? Andrew Thomas, all right, he's gotten better, but, still now coming off.
Thomas is a player, but that has nothing to do with Garrett.
Kadarius Toney is a player, right? But who's gotten better? How has this offense gotten any better? Yes, you were playing a difficult defense last night, but one with a secondary that's been banged up. You can't tell me that Sean Bunting Murphy, whatever, that he comes back and all of a sudden, you can't score. Like Daniel Jones, the decision-making, I know the second interception maybe wasn't so much his fault, a tip ball, that kind of stuff happens. But the first one where he throws it to Steve McClendon, I mean, good grief.
Yeah,
and you finish with a stat line, 167 through the air, touchdown, 2 interceptions. How can you win a football game like that?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't.
I mean, Jones was awful. It was terrible. On the McClendon interception, Greasy did a nice job on ESPN breaking it down. And in essence, the tight end was slow to the route. That's a case where Jones is outside of the pocket, feeling the pressure there, and he's just got to throw the ball away instead of trying to throw the ball across the field, expecting the tight end to be there who was coming across the field, and he wasn't. Ends up, it's a horrendous decision and a terrible interception by Daniel Jones, and you just can't have it. You can't afford to be minus in the turnover differential on the road in Tampa when you're 11-point underdog going into the game. It's awful, and you're tired of watching it if you're a Giant fan, and you have every right to vent your frustration. You have every right to say that this is not good enough on the the 7-year anniversary of the catch of Odell Beckham Jr. I think this team is 30 games under 500 since that catch against the Dallas Cowboys, which vaulted Beckham into absolute stardom. And you look at where this organization is. The offensive line has not gotten particularly better. You looked at Jones. Jones last night, what he needed to show you as a quarterback, and I was talking about yesterday about cut Daniel Jones loose, but what he needed to show you was the ability to stand tall in the pocket with the blitz coming and be able to make the necessary throws instead of backing up. And what you saw last night is that Daniel Jones wanted no part of that.
Yep.
Wanted no part of that whatsoever, and he deserves to be criticized. You can't go out there and continue to back up, and then throwing the ball away. I mean, all of the decisions, missing guys, Galladay wide open over the middle, overthrowing a wide open Darius Slayton on the left sideline, overthrowing him by basically 7 yards or 7 feet over his head, and Darius Slayton's not a small man. I mean, you're not looking at a receiver that's 5'8" or 5'9". I mean, Darius Slayton has got some size to him, but he missed him last night. So there were throws that Jones needed to make, and he needed to stand tall because you knew that the blitz was coming.
Of course.
You knew what Todd Bowles was going to try and do. You knew the deficiencies, even with the return of the offensive line and Andrew Thomas at left tackle. You knew they were going to send pressure. Jones last night needed to show a little bit of toughness, and he wanted no part of it. So Jones gets absolutely dragged after that performance last night. It might have been his worst performance as a Giant quarterback. And then you get to the play calling of Jason Garrett. Yeah, I mean, what Judge said after the game and with the cut that we just played, Maggie, is this. There are too many talented players on this team to be able to not be able to put together a semblance of a consistent offense week in and week out. And you just don't see it.
And it's losing football. They had the stat on the Monday Night Football broadcast, the main broadcast, even though the Manning cast was, again, chef's kiss last night. But we'll get into that later. But they had the stat that the Giants score more points off of field goals than any other team in the NFL.
Yeah,
that is
terrible.
losing football. That is losing football. There are issues in the red zone. You're right. Considering the playmakers that they do have, the investment they made on the offense, in terms of draft picks, in terms of actual free agents, money. I mean, they have put a lot of resources on this offense, and they are atrocious. Atrocious, whether it's because guys can't execute, whether it's the play calls, whether it's the untimely penalties. I mean, everything that can go wrong for them goes wrong. And that game ended up being 30-10. It felt like 50-10. They took Tom Brady out with 6.5 minutes left to go in the fourth. That's a lot of freaking game time left, Moose, for a 30-10 game. Like, it felt like it was so much more out of control than that. And the Bucks came in ready to play. The Giants, I mean, they just fizzled.
Well, and you thought you were going to, and it wasn't even a great Buck performance. Like, the Bucks are nowhere near where they were toward the tail end of last season. They really are not. I mean, that is a 17-10 game. Giants have the ball, a 4th and short at the Buccaneer 25-yard line in the third quarter. So this is not a game like the Indianapolis Colts-Jets game where it's 42-10. Like the Giants
felt bigger.
The Giants had an opportunity.
They were never in control.
They had they were never. They had an opportunity. They did. I mean, the game was tied up at 10. It's a 17-10 game. Defense and penalties helped them prevent the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from scoring at the end of the first half. They're driving to begin that second half. They punch the ball in the end zone. I'm not telling you the Giants are going to win the game, but who knows what that game looks like. The Bucks aren't right. The Bucks could have easily been beat. There was a pathway for the Giants to win that game last night, but they had to do something that we really have not been able to. We've not been able to say the Giants can consistently do, which is consistently play well on all three phases: offense, defense, and special teams. And for the offense to be able to score points, they don't score.
No,
I mean they just. It does not matter who's healthy. Barkley is such a weak runner. He really is. I mean, he dances behind the offensive line all the time. He can't run in between the tackles. He's
never been able to.
I'm tired of hearing about the ankle. I really am. I mean, show a little bit of toughness. Show a little bit of physicality. All we talk about is his thighs and how big his thighs are. Go watch Nick Chubb run the football. Go watch some of these other guys in the National Football League, the way that they run the football. Lower the shoulders. With Saquon Barkley, you see none of it. I mean, it's all these weak, soft runs. He almost looks like Blair Thomas running the football now. He really does. He's dancing behind the line of scrimmage. Hit the hole and go. I mean, hit the hole and go if you're Saquon Barkley. If there's nothing there, grind out the 3 yards. Not every play. I mean, Booker is a more physical runner at this stage than Saquon Barkley is. That's amazing when you think about it. And he's coming into this game. It's been weeks since we've seen him since he suffered that low ankle injury.
Moose, that's why I asked the game plan they had against the Raiders, which was run the ball, run the ball, run the ball to try to evade the two defensive ends and pass rushers that were coming at Daniel Jones. Run the ball, run the ball. And Devontae Booker ran the ball, and it didn't look pretty, but that game plan did work. And remember, I asked Carl Banks, could they have done that if it was Saquon Barkley featured instead of Devontae Booker? And it was really hard to answer that question. That was not a given. Or maybe ask Tiki that.
Tiki. I mean, it was done.
It was, and that is the thing. Even when Booker got in late in the game, it's like, boom, 8-yard run, 9-yard run. Like the guy just gets it. And Barkley, maybe he's hesitant because of the ankle, but he's been like this forever. This is what he is. He never hits the hole like that. He's never 3 yards in a cloud of dust, ever. It's always the dancing and the hesitation. Barry Sanders is his idol.
Well,
he's a weaker version than Barry.
Well, he's not even close to what Barry Sanders was, and that's fine. I mean, Barry Sanders would at least make somebody miss. I mean, he would use his speed, break to the outside. The vision for Barry Sanders was unquestioned. You look at Saquon Barkley now. Now what the hell is he? I mean, it's not a matter of, we've got Barkley back, and I've never questioned the talent level of the player, but what exactly does he present you as a running back in this scheme and what you're trying to accomplish? He did nothing last night. I mean, he did absolutely nothing. The Giants' best weapon is the guy that just got here, is young Joka. I mean, he's their best offensive option. Summit, New Jersey. Jim gets us going here on this Tuesday midday. What's going on, Jimmy?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey,
Maggie,
Jim.
you had it exactly right. And you said, I don't understand how they could drop this much money and draft capital into the offense for them to be this bad.
Ugh.
I mean, you got Galladay, huge salary. He's got 20 catches for 0 touchdowns. Kadarius Toney, 35 catches, 0 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley has 195 rushing yards this year. And that's not to mention first-round pick Evan Ingram. I mean, they're last in the league in red zone. They're outscored 45-0 in the last 2 minutes of the first half.
Oh, that stat was awful yesterday.
Yeah,
and you're right. And there's more first rounders. How about your quarterbacks? The first 6 overall pick. Saquon Barkley, 2nd overall pick. I mean, you have invested a ton into this offense. Will Hernandez, high 2nd round pick. Blah.
Oh, Hernandez stinks.
All those players were to mask the fact that they have a miserable offensive line, and they have not fixed it in 10 years. And you guys are totally right. Last night was the first time I questioned, can Daniel Jones actually do this? Because I've been a big supporter. He looks great. He looked fantastic his first year if he could clean up the turnovers. Last night was the first time I said, can this guy actually do it? And I don't know. I
mean, Jim,
who knows?
You're not wrong. I mean, you're right to be really critical of Jones. Now you got to spin it forward, and if the decision comes down that everyone's expecting to come down, is that Garrett is relieved of his play calling duties and Freddie Kitchens steps in. Well, does that change the vibe with a different play call? They need to do something. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not about effort. It's not about coaching, like during the course of the week, or preparedness or the game. I mean, really, honestly, it's about the game plan going in. You need to have a fresh set of eyes here. I mean, it was interesting when Carl Banks said there was a lot of kind of influence of Freddie Kitchens in the ground game, in the Raiders game. Yeah. You look at what he likes to do as compared to what Garrett likes to do. Well, you know what? Get Garrett out of there as a play caller. He's not good enough. It doesn't work. It just, for a myriad of different reasons, whether it be old school, when you look at his offensive philosophy. I mean, if you up on social media right now, you have analysts going out there replaying one offensive play over and over and basically mocking out the Giants, where you had 3 players, I think a tight end and 2 receivers literally within 3 yards of one another in the middle of the field on a play in which Daniel Jones throws the ball away, saying, where exactly do you want Daniel Jones to throw the football? There's nowhere to throw it, because you had 3 guys running their route, amazingly enough, ending up in the same place. The same
place where it looks like they're running into each other. And oh, by the way, it was a 3-man rush where Ndamukong Suh got home.
Embarrassing. Embarrassing.
What?
I mean, so it was, last night was an absolute and complete embarrassment. Like when Pat Leonard's tweeting out that John Mara's leading the stadium with security and
what did he knock over last night?
Looking basically the way that any Giant fan should look after watching that performance, rightfully so. Now it's a matter of, does this bring about any sort of change? And it should. Cherry Hill, Conrad. What's going on, Conrad?
I don't even know where to begin with this team. If you remember a couple weeks ago, I called and asked for them to get rid of Garrett and put Freddie Kitchens in there. I think we have enough draft capital to really, at the end of the season, to try to see if we can make a run at Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I want to point out one play. You look at that play that Ross, they threw a screen to Ross, and which was a nice play. He got some yardage.
That was a nice play.
And I'm looking at that.
That was
play.
an end around.
It was an end around play.
It was not a screen. It was an end around.
It was.
Yeah.
And I'm
we got out to the 40.
It was an end around for 16 yards right after the Tampa Bay Bucks had scored a touchdown to make it 17-10.
Yeah, they got out to the 41-yard line.
And I'm going to show you the reason why Garrett is not the right coach, because that play should have been going to young Joker and not Ross. Because I think young Joker needs to be able to get the ball in his hand on quick slants and shorter plays versus the type of screen plays that they're doing to get him the ball. Like, he's not the type of offensive weapon like a Beckham that could actually go deep and that could beat a player like that. His move is more get the ball in his hand, and after that, he gets creative.
Yeah, make a play.
To me,
but the thing is, I didn't mind that because obviously, Ross with the speed, he was able to turn it on. You're probably only going to be able to run that one time. You do it right after, your opponent scores a touchdown, puts you in positive field position. And then the next play after that was the Tony to Slayton, where they go for it and it becomes an incomplete pass. At first they threw the flags, but then realized that, the guys had just gotten their legs tangled up and there wasn't actually any pass interference. But then you're 2nd and 10.
I think Slayton actually tripped himself.
He might have. Tony gets a 5-yard gain, and then 3rd and 5, you get the Tony catch on the sideline, but it actually wasn't a catch because he couldn't make a football move before he went out of bounds. And the Bucks challenge, they win the challenge, and you're punting.
By the way, you know what the other thing that bothered me? It's just a small thing and like kind of small detail that you're not a lot of people are going to think about. Not saying that it's just kind of this, crazy, unbelievable thought. End of the first half. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? Like, end of the first half, you've got two timeouts in your pocket. You've got 30 seconds to go.
You're so right.
You throw a dump-off pass to Saquon Barkley for 11 yards. With 9 seconds to go, you call a timeout.
What is going on with them at the end of half?
Go to the break. Go to
Just
half.
take a knee.
Just go to break. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, and for number one, your offensive line can't handle whether it be a 3-man rush, a 4-man rush, or a blitz. Your offensive line can't handle anything. Jones is under duress the entire night. You actually have a ball drop back where he almost gets sacked. Hits Slayton. Slayton fumbles the football. Recovered by the Buccaneers. I'm like, this would be really kind of, as you mentioned before, the chef's kiss. This would be the chef's kiss if the Buccaneers actually pick up that fumble,
and
run it back into the end zone for a touchdown, and have a 24-10 lead. Go to half. Go to half. You're getting the ball. You can't score. You couldn't score if your life depended on it the entire game. 30 seconds beginning at your own 25-yard line. You think you're scoring there with 2 timeouts?
Well, Moose, either run the clock or go for it. Do something. What are you doing? Either are you running out the clock? Are you running plays? Like, what the hell is going on?
Just go to break.
Just go to break. We need to just go to break,
just go to
unfortunately.
halftime. I mean, that's it. I mean, if you're the Giants at that stage, go to halftime. You're calling a timeout with 9 seconds to go. After the dump off to Saquon Barkley for 10 or 11 yards.
Your head in your hands. Just how? This team doesn't get any better. And even the coaching staff. 877-337-6666. We said it. They should have done it going into the bye. Change coordinators and Jason Garrett. They didn't do it. We'll get back to your phone calls and so much more from this game. Of course, today is Hungerthon Day at the Fan as well. So we're going to give you all the details of what's going on, what you can bid on, how you can donate, all the amazing things that Why Hunger does, and all the money that's raised for Hungerthon. Casamigos is 50% matching everything today until 2 o'clock. This is a great opportunity to do something awesome right before the holiday, and one of the best days here at WFAN.
Yeah, got to thank everyone, George, Randy, Mike Lee, everyone over at Casamigos Tequila. So 50%. Not about the packages, so we've got a studio visit to Moose and Maggie or anything like that. There's plenty of packages that are out there, but if you call the number and you dial up or you hop on hungerthon.org or call 1-800-5HUNGRY and you donate $10, well, Casamigos is going to donate $5.
Yep.
So 50% of every dollar that is raised from now up until 2 o'clock. They did it from 6 to 10 a.m. They're doing it from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. this afternoon during our program as well. And got to thank, very generous from everybody at Casamigos, George, Randy, Mike, and Lee for that generous donation.
Yeah, really great. Great guys, obviously. Great cause, and we're going to be talking about it all day.